We learned about another podcast that was popular at the time. And we were hearing some things about their success. And we were shocked. Like, how can that be true in podcasting? And we joked and we're like, what if we were able to do that? And we have done that times a few, which is a shock.
Hi, I'm Sally Christensen, the founder and CEO of Argent, a women's workwear brand. And this is Work Friends, a podcast for those who take their work, but not always themselves, seriously. Work Friends. Today is one of the best days ever because I'm in Los Angeles to interview Monica Padman. Monica's the co-host and producer of the wildly successful Armchair Expert podcast and also producer, editor, and all-around creative behind the whole umbrella of Armchair Expert shows, including Armchair Anonymous, Flightless Bird, Race to 35, Monica and Just Love Boys, most recently Synced, among several others. As we're recording this episode, Monica and her Armchair Expert co-creator and co-host, Dax Shepard, just announced a massive deal with Amazon and Wondery, so we get into that too. She is one of my favorite people of all time, and I'm so happy and honored to have her join us. So without further ado, Monica Padman. Hey, Monica, welcome.
Thank you for having me. This is the most, I think, professional setup I've ever been in a podcast.
What a compliment from the expert. Thank you.
Very professional.
I like it here. This is our first time recording in LA.
With me?
With you.
Oh my gosh, I'm flattered.
I'm really excited that you're here. Firstly, congratulations on your news this week.
Thank you.
Yes. Amazon and the Wondery. You guys made a deal with them. Yep. That was recently announced. And I'll butcher the details, but it's a big deal.
It's a really fun deal. Wondery's awesome. They have incredible shows, a lot of fun true crime shows.
Oh, I mean, you just...
I know who I'm talking to.
My favorite podcast, all the Armchair umbrella and true crime.
Yeah.
And politics. I'll also do like Pod Save America and The Daily when it gets political.
I used to do all those and I've had to take a big old break.
That's understandable. Mm-hmm. And how are you feeling about just all the news and all the things?
I'm feeling very, very grateful. We were at Spotify and I loved Spotify. Still do. They're a great, great company. They were really good to work with. But I'm really, really excited for what we're going to do at Wondery. And I think there's going to be a lot of more fun opportunity. Well, speaking of, and I guess I'm sure I can say it because we've talked about it, we are going to be adding some video elements. So I got to get used to this environment. Our fact checks are going to be on video and our Thursday episodes are going to be on video.
It's a big change.
It is a big change.
Well, y'all have also been, you've talked about not doing video intentionally, but it does feel like a nice...
It's nice.
Agree. I mean, for me as a consumer of what you're doing, I think it sounds really fun to watch the moments, especially the fact check where you like really get to hear about what's happening in y'all's lives.
Yes.
To watch that on that just is.
I think the reactions are going to be quite fun for people to see how we react to each other. We're still protecting our Mondays. We'll never do video on Mondays. That's our celebrity guest. And we do feel that if people come in all glammed up, they're immediately like a little on edge, which we tried to avoid.
I thought the decision for us to do video would lead me to be glammed up, and yet...
Doesn't have to be.
Haven't gotten there yet.
Does not have to be. You can make the rules.
I want to hear about your biggest oh no moment this week or recently. Something that went sideways and how did you handle it? And I do feel like your expertise is in managing those problems that crop up or the chaos or whatever needs to be handled, you handle.
Well, thank you. I try, but I step in it every now and then. When I mean, I feel like you wrote this question just because for BTS, me and you are very close friends and we chat all the time. So you know what's going on. But I did have an oopsie recently. It's so embarrassing. Like I don't like admitting failure, but it's real.
I think it's important.
It's important.
Yes, especially at your stage of success.
Yeah.
And I think it says a lot about someone to be able to admit.
It's weird because on our show, all we do is talk about our like mistakes and vulnerabilities. And I'm very comfortable with that. But there's something about work failure.
Yeah.
That's tough for me.
Yeah, we're so similar.
Yeah, Virgos.
Yes, yeah. Not used to misstepping. Wait, what is the misstep?
Okay.
Shared?
So yes, we have a wonderful sponsor. I won't name them for the purposes of this. They're great. And they have a great product. I do love it. But I made a joke about them, basically. It's hard to explain. It wasn't really about them. I was basically talking about a competitor, and it sounds really bad when I say it like that. I was like elevating a competitor, basically. And that didn't go over well. And what's also weird is I edit all these shows as well. So I had the opportunity to take it out. It wasn't like I heard it again, and I did not think it was that bad or bad at all. I was like, oh, it's clearly a joke. It didn't really necessarily come across as a joke. And so, of course, very reasonably and understandably, the sponsor was not thrilled, which, of course.
But didn't it end up being a win for them? Because I feel like it got more attention as a result.
It definitely got more attention. The reason I kept it in is because, we ended up talking about it for a lot longer. And I thought, that's good for them. But also, no, I should never say something disparaging ever about a sponsor. That's like unacceptable. But sometimes, because we are so real on the show, and especially on the fact checks, which is where this happened, we're so real that I sometimes forget that I also have to be protective. I'm very, very protective of Dax and our guests, always hyper vigilant about that. But I don't necessarily lump myself in all the time. I'm just like, who cares about me? Like, it's just me. And turns out some people care. So I that was a big mistake, and I hated it. It was really hard to sit with. Yeah,
I mean, I feel like you rarely make mistakes too. So,
well, I knock on wood.
Yeah, I mean that's part of it, but I feel like those are, necessary growth.
Yeah, they are.
Which but they are hard to talk about. Okay, speaking of the fact check, so for those who don't know, Armchair Expert, you record an episode followed by what used to be like a actual fact check, but you used to like really get into the details of what the guest was saying and fact check it. So let's say someone comes on and they try and produce the date of some historical event, and then you'll go into the fact check and do a deep dive into that.
Yes.
It's turned into that coupled with an update on your life and Dax's life. And it's such a hook for people, myself included. But I'm curious to know, and this ties in because I think that you sit on Google half the time during the fact check, but what are some of the things that you have Googled recently for your job?
It's a good question. Well, today is Kristen's birthday, Kristen Bell, my friend. And I started to Google what, as a joke, my jokes are not going well these days. I gotta be careful.
Just to be clear.
I started to Google what to post about Kristen Bell on her birthday. And I was just going to post what AI said, which I thought was going to be funny, but then I didn't get around to it. So that was an almost Google.
I think that's great.
It's funny, or it's fun.
Just to call out that's who you are. I feel like you take things in the best way. You think you're incredibly creative and just funny and thoughtful, but nothing is what you see is what you get. There's a lot more thought that goes into everything that you do.
That's nice. That's a kind compliment.
It's true.
I like that.
It's a fact.
A fact check.
I'm trying to think for myself.
Yeah, what about you?
I feel like I'd spend my time Googling like people or news.
Yeah.
I think I most recently was Googling recent news on Gretchen Whitmer to respond to an email just to have like some context on her book launch and what was going on before. I feel like that's helpful sometimes when you're emailing a team
to have some cursory knowledge.
Correct.
Yeah, I do think so. I do think it's helpful.
Okay, so now we're just going to go to early days. So you and I had a very similar upbringing. I was raised in South Carolina, going to school in Georgia. You were raised in Georgia.
Yeah, going to school in Georgia.
Which that could be a whole other conversation, but focusing it on career. What did you want to be when you grew up?
I wanted to be, when I was in when I was little, I wanted to be a doctor. And then when I was in 8th grade, I wanted to be an actor.
Did you feel like, this is an aside, I was so limited in terms of like what I could envision for myself, to be honest? Like I was like, I could be a banker or a doctor or a lawyer or a mom or a combination of the job and the mom.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like, because there's not as much industry. You were in Atlanta, so I feel like that's a little bit different. There's like slightly more industry there.
Now.
I didn't think beyond those roles really, and acting.
With acting was definitely out on a limb. Like
yes,
that was
for sure.
Not in my household. Like we were not a creative household. My dad's an engineer. My mom's a computer programmer. So I definitely knew like I was going to be a professional. It's funny that you bring up mom. I never grew up thinking of that in my hyphenate ever, which is kind of interesting because I'm still not one. So yeah.
Yeah, weird. I fast forward. So actor is really what you landed on.
Yes, in 8th grade. And then from then on, I was like, that's really what I want to do.
And the way to do that is?
Google it. Google it, baby.
To bring it back to Google.
Yeah.
You went to UGA?
I went to UGA. I said, well, my original plan was to go to New York or LA for college and, hit the scene. And at that time, University of Georgia had a Hope Scholarship program. So if you had a certain GPA or above, you qualified for free tuition at any Georgia state school. And so my parents were like, that's your option. Like, you're doing that. No one gets offered free tuition. You just did. You're taking it. Or you can go wherever you want, but you got to pay for it and you got to get a scholarship and you got to figure it out. And I was like, okay, cool. Well, I guess I'll start at UGA and then I'll definitely transfer a couple of years in and then I'll hit the scene. And no, as soon as I got there, it was the best experience of my life. It was so fun. You cannot leave once you get in there. So fun. And so, yeah, I studied theater there and public relations. I double majored.
And college was a requirement in your head?
Oh, yeah.
Instilled by your parents? Or was it you? Because I think for me, it was the same. I was like, and then I'll go to college. And then, like, you just have this mapped out.
It wasn't even the idea of not doing it was not even on the radar.
Right. But your plan is to go to one of these cities and pursue acting that doesn't require this undergraduate degree.
Yeah, exactly. Of course, you convince yourself like, well, I'm studying theater, so I'm learning how to act. And I did theater in high school too. So it felt necessary, but it's not.
I think for the life experience, actually, it was necessary for me. All of my soft skills came from undergrad.
Yeah.
No real hard skills to point to from undergrad, yes. I don't think.
Well, it's funny because at our dinner yesterday, I was talking to one of our friends, and she also went to a state school, and she was saying it's so interesting because a lot of people around us have big fancy degrees and went to big fancy schools. I did grow up feeling that those schools were very impressive and cool. Mm-hmm. And I've always respected that a lot. We call on Armchair, we call it unifile. We made that up, but it's like being obsessed with fancy schools. And so I remember the first time I was in an improv group at UCB, and there was someone on my team who had gone to Yale, and I was shocked when I found that out. And he was very smart, but he wasn't smarter than the rest of us, and he didn't have anything that the rest of us didn't have. And it was such a clarifying moment of, I didn't, because I think I had a little bit of a chip on my shoulder about 100%. That.
I think I still do.
Now I don't. Now I wear it like a real badge of honor.
I think that growing up where we did, society puts things into your head that are impossible not to internalize. And one of them is girls aren't as smart. Girls are meant to do X, Y, and Z. And so you're really put into a box. And so I think I've stepped into a lot of environments like undergrad, grad school, where I was quick to take a back seat and think that everyone else had a better experience and was smarter.
Yeah.
And then you fast forward to, the end of grad school, and that's actually not the case at all. But I think I had to prove that to myself time and time again. Now I understand that I'm very capable.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And in some ways that's like that chip on your shoulder that keeps you hungry. And
it does. And it makes you want to have something to tell, to prove yourself like, hey, this is actually an asset.
100%.
Yeah.
It gives you an edge.
Yeah.
So graduated and picked up and moved?
Graduated, lived at home for a year, had an agent in Atlanta. It was starting to happen there. Like, I think that's when tax incentives started to happen. So they're bringing a lot of shooting over there, filming over there. And so, I had an agent there. I did like little co-star parts, one-liners. My first role was on Drop Dead Gorgeous. It was a show on, I think, Lifetime.
Great.
It was so fun. I was so scared. And it was the first time I'd ever been on set. And I went before he called action on the first take. And I was like, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. I'm so bad. It was awful. It was so, I was like, oh my God, they just found out that I shouldn't be doing this. And I just found out too, but you just power through.
And then what prompted the move?
So it was always like, I'm going to go to LA, but I should maybe save money for a little bit, which was what that year was about. And one of my best friends, Anthony, we went to college together. We were planning on going out at the same time, and he was coming out here to write, which he successfully has done. And so we were planning our timing.
That was the hardest part for me after undergrad is so many people. I think it's like people generally have trouble leaving where they grew up.
Yes.
I think that's even like truer in the Southeast.
I think so.
I really was just waiting for anyone. And finally I just picked up and was like, I'm out. I'm going to Chicago.
Yes.
I'm doing this. But
you were waiting for a buddy?
I was waiting for anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like for 7 months I waited.
Yeah.
And then just went for it because what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
You end up right back at home,
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It doesn't feel like that in the moment. It feels like you're risking your whole life and your identity, but it's not. You can always go back.
Not at all. You don't really have any responsibilities. There are so many jobs out there that you can make a living off of. You can scrape it together, which is what you ended up doing. So you came out here and you babysat, you soul cycled, you were auditioning.
Yep. I was auditioning mainly for commercials, also for television and film stuff, but I was not getting very much of that. But a lot of commercial auditions. I think most actors out here understand this. Like, there's about 5 or 6 major casting studios that cast commercials. And if you just happen to be eating lunch across the street, you have like a PTSD reaction staring at the building where, they're making so many decisions. The desperation that is oozing out the doors of those buildings is palpable and is very, very funny. But yeah, so I was auditioning a ton. I was babysitting a lot. That was my main revenue stream. And I took a break from babysitting to soul cycle, as you say. I was a front desk worker. I was not. Everyone always, when I say that, they assume I taught.
I knew that.
I know, but people don't. They're like, oh, wow. And I'm like, no.
You should own that.
I mean, I didn't, though. I just worked the front desk, but I did kill it at the front desk. I was a key holder, which was a big deal.
Oh, my goodness. You would be dream for me to find responsible individuals in those roles.
Yeah, it's hard. I was also old. I was old at the time.
Sure. 24
or something.
Baby.
Yeah. But old because everyone else was 20.
Those are those forced timelines too that we put ourselves on.
I know. Mm-hmm. In retrospect, thinking back and feeling it, feeling old there is what a waste.
What a waste. I mean, we all did that. At 24, I was like, I am an adult.
Yeah.
Now I'm
But it's good to remember because we're gonna do that about this time as well.
That's right.
And so I have to remind myself of that every time I'm like, oh gosh, time is really flying. I'm heading towards 40. It's like, that's young.
It is young and it's exciting. And I talked to my parents about this because it's that forced timeline thing again, where you're like, you have this set of, and this is where we're similar. I feel like we plan out things and then do them. Like we go dream and do. And my parents are always reminding me that like, you're still at your prime, you know, and just like be in it and enjoy it. Yeah. And I do think that we both are in really exciting moments. You went from, I mean, and I'll let you speak to this. You went from Soul Cycle with some babysitting to launching one of the biggest podcasts in the world. Like, I mean,
there's a little baby step in between that helped because I babysat for Kristen and Dax. That's how I got to know them. But then when the kids went to school, they liked me. So they were like, well, we want to keep her around. What's she going to do during the day, basically? And so I started assisting for Kristen. She didn't have an assistant before that.
Oh, yeah. Duh. I knew that. Yes.
And then that's really, so when I started assisting for her is when I started taking on a lot more and started writing stuff for her and started just like building that out. And then by the end of my time with her, we were producing stuff together. We were more co-conspirators than I was her assistant at that point. And I gained a ton of confidence with her in that role. And I think that's why I was able to then transition it over into this bizarre podcast life.
Well, I think that you have just touched on something that defines our generation, which is we were just willing to go in and do anything asked of us. And there's so much learning and opportunity that comes from that. And you really are the embodiment of that. Because look at what you've achieved. But I think for all of us, we can point to having to make copies for the meetings, but then getting invited to be in the meeting or whatever it is. If you do that legwork, the upside is limitless and
you have no idea where it will lead.
And there's a lot of learning in that. So like I try and just stay connected in that way. Like I still will go into the store and like sell or clean a toy. Like I just don't care. But I think that that's the work ethic. And a little bit of it is that edge and that chip that we talked about earlier where it's like, oh, I'm going to, sleeves up and let's do this.
Yeah. And I think it helps you know what's hard and what's not hard. And assisting was one of the hardest things I've ever done and will continue to be one of the hardest things. That's a hard job. People don't know that. And especially many people who have assistants don't know that. And so I like that I can look at assistants or, if we have people working for us ever and know that they're doing the hard work.
Yeah, agree completely. I think that's one of the hardest jobs, period, full stop. Yeah. And I think that's also like a testing ground at a lot of places for future opportunities.
Yes.
Like if you can hang in this role, I mean, like the future is
good.
yours.
Yeah.
Correct. So then you're just starting to record thinking, oh, this is something we'll do. And it'll be like
no expectation.
Yeah.
No one really believes us when we say that now, but it really, really is the truth. Dax wanted to do a podcast because he liked them. And then I was like, I think I can probably figure that out. I can help with that. And then we just started doing it. We did not know what we were doing at all, but we both like to talk a ton and we like to learn a lot. And so, we just started it. And I remember we had someone on early, or maybe it was like right when we were starting. We learned about another podcast that was popular at the time. And we were hearing some things about their success and the like details of the success. And we were shocked. Like, how can that be true in podcasting? Like, how could this person be making this kind of money? How could they have the reach that they have? How can they have that many listeners? Like, what? We were laughing about it. Like, that's absurd. And we joked and we're like, what if we were able to do that as a joke? Like, truly, we thought that was absurd. And we have done that times a few, which is a shock. It's like hard to talk about without sounding braggy, but I think that's an important piece. We actually never talk about that day.
I think it's important to talk about though, because career is not linear and it's not always what you planned, and you can grow and evolve and pivot.
Yeah. And sky can be the limit, but you also have to have some humility around. I mean, there's like this very strange balance that happened at the very beginning that led to this. And we're still so surprised and so grateful. Cannot believe it.
Everyone has stories about their experience with Armchair Expert, you know? Like I had children and then listened walking my child with you guys, and you guys were a part of it, or I was nursing, or when I'm putting my kids to sleep, or I am sober and you've been a huge part of that journey for me, or I lost a loved one and you guys were a part of that journey. You have just become really significant in people's lives. And I think what you guys have put out in the world is magical, and I'm a consumer of it. But I want to hear about what growing into the role has looked like, and what kind of things that you had to learn in your role in this whole entity. Everything from the technical bits to like how you prepare for an interview, or like just any of it. It's fascinating and it's so impressive and cool and ever evolving.
It is ever evolving. It's still changing, still learning. We're all still learning. We've changed a ton. When we first started, because we were just making it all up on the fly, like we didn't know. There was no playbook, and there were a lot of podcasts, but nothing like now. No one to call really and be like, hey, well, how do you do this? We were just kind of going at it. And especially in the way we recorded at first, you know, those first few episodes, I'm silent. I don't know when or if I'm supposed to talk. It's uncomfortable. Dax was very much like he had his notes and he was very stuck on them at first. And he quickly was like, oh, this is too rigid. I need to have this here as a just in case. But the goal is to not use it at all, which is what ends up happening now all the time. And yeah, for me, the major growth, for one, has been growing into the producerial element, which again, I was sort of just figuring out. And I don't know. You just like, it's like trial and error. You try this method, it works here, and you try that again. And I don't know. It's hard to explain the details of it. That's not the part that I have grown or I feel personal growth in. I feel like for me, confidence has changed everything. As we've done this, I've gained more confidence. And as the show has gotten bigger, people know me now, which helps, because at first when we'd have people in, they didn't know me, they knew Dax. And so there was a little bit of like, who's this person? And we didn't really, to be fair, I definitely didn't do a good job of like, hey, I'm Monica. I'm the co-host. I'm here too, you know? So it was just, that was a lesson, because that feels scary to do, but it's really important to just like, it was really important. And so anyway, I feel that my confidence has changed the way I just am in the room. I feel fine not talking now. And I also feel fine saying, hey, 1 second, so that I can say something. Like I've grown into knowing how to balance, because he's the main interviewer. He is. I'm there we're not like equals coming in as far as our like duties there in the actual interview. So I know that, but I know my value now. And so I know that it's important for me to say things when it's adding a different lens that might not be represented, or yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I answered anything correctly just now, or I don't know if I answered it at all, but
I think you answered it exactly. Right. I think producing is opaque. And what I have gleaned is producing it means that you do everything.
You do everything.
And it is such a specific skill set.
Mm-hmm.
It takes an attention to detail that most people do not possess, but also an ability to zoom out and see things holistically.
Yes.
And you are controlling every aspect of everything. I think one of the pieces of professional growth that I have observed, we share this. I like to control things,
mm-hmm.
to give up control. I'm happy to do it, but I have to have a level of trust in someone.
Yeah.
And I'd like to give it to someone that's going to do it better than I'm going to do it.
Yes.
An example would be, we have a creative director now who like you are the expert. Like if you think it's great, it's great. This is such a relief that I don't have to.
And your ego is fine with it.
100%.
Yeah, that's great.
And she's proven herself and earned my trust, but like it's like giving away pieces of the business over time.
Yeah.
So can you sort of speak to what that has looked like? Because you've had to scale this inevitably. I would imagine you've had to give up pieces that you were controlling initially.
Yes. We've added more members to the team, which took way too long because I am extremely controlling. I still do think I control too much. Like there's still more to give away that I find impossible to do, but I've definitely gotten better at it. And because I've loosened my grip a little bit. And I think that also has to do with confidence. I think at first, if I wasn't doing everything, I felt like, then what would I point to? Like, why am I here? You know? And so it was like, if someone asked, why are you here? I could say, well, because I do this. I do everything. And then they'd have to say like, oh, okay. And so to give some of that away feels scary because it feels like you're opening yourself up to being devalued. But I now know in a way that no one can really take from me what I do bring to the table. So that's helped a lot. It's funny that you brought that up though, because when we were talking about assisting, I actually think it's the same set of skills. Assisting and producing are very similar. And it is such attention to detail. It's seeing big picture. It's seeing 10 steps down the line and fixing it now or getting ahead of it. Or it's the same thing. It's just one is, I think it's the same thing, actually.
Yeah. Well, and I think that you're able to, through building a team, free up time for the things only you can do. You absolutely. And I just had a conversation with someone today that is a listener and specifically highlighted that she's a fan of yours and the perspective and point of view that you bring. Nice. There are so many listeners that feel that way. You exemplify not talking to talk and being so thoughtful and intentional with what you're saying. That takes a level of control and confidence that most of us do not possess.
It's hard. I'm no superhero. That's learned. There were so many episodes early on where I don't even know what was happening during the actual episode because I was just sitting there like, oh my gosh, I haven't said anything, and like it's so weird that I'm not saying anything. And because at first we were also having people that I couldn't believe. We were having Judd Apatow was sitting next to me, and I could not comprehend it, and I wanted him to walk away and think, wow, that girl is really something. She's so smart and interesting. I mean, I want everyone to think that about me all the time. But it's fighting that urge to just talk or show off. And that's not my job. That's not my job there. And that is hard.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of the confidence. This all works together, but I also think behind the scenes that you've grown the team with someone who now edits the episode.
Yes, we have an editor come in before I do, which helps so much. Because then I'm focused on the right things. I'm focused on content editing as opposed to the likes and the ums and the things that I don't need to be focusing on anymore. And so that's been so helpful.
And you are a public facing part of this show and about to become more public facing with like integrating video into it. So I think there are just so many aspects of this that you have to think about when it comes to yourself. So building a team oftentimes I think can be intimidating or threatening, but it's so additive.
It is.
And it reflects well on you as a leader and for your brand and for all the things. It's like I think the thing I'm most proud of with what I've built at Argent is like the team.
Yeah.
And the energy in our culture and just like watching people deliver something in a way that I could never imagine because it's not my skill set.
That you gave someone an opportunity to thrive is the best gift, like for yourself to see like, oh, I built something and now that person is in their element because of it is the best you can ask for. The dream.
And who doesn't want to work with you guys? I feel like there would be a line out the door.
I think people do, but I'm a tough sell. Like I am very particular, and I expect a lot of excellence from whoever is on our team across the board, whether it's someone we're working with on a show. We're not just doing it because, oh, this person seems to have some sort of following. No, we have to connect. I have to believe that they have something really interesting and special to offer. I have a high bar.
But that's what you haven't even talked about. Like how you have multiple shows under the Armchair Expert umbrella. Mm-hmm. You're on multiple shows under all the shows under the Armchair Expert umbrella.
All our running shows, yeah.
How do you give up control comfortably and confidently? Emma's the best example that we touched on earlier. But you've built a bigger team.
It's still pretty small.
Okay.
It's still pretty small. That's the truth. And that's, I want to say like, yeah, we've now it's this big team and it's all cohesive. It's not. I mean, we have Rob, obviously, and and thank God for Rob. And and technically he knows everything, and he fills in all the gaps that Dax and I don't know how to do. And that's perfect. And then Emma, who I knew from Soul Cycle, and I asked her, I just thought of her when I thought, like, who should we bring on? She was great back then. And I knew she would just do whatever it took, which she has. And then we have a couple other people who help, but I'm still I'm still micromanaging in some ways, if I'm being honest. And that's a goal, is to release a little bit.
That's great.
Yeah, I have to work on it.
Yeah.
That's just the truth. But our shows are so fun, and I enjoy being on them. Because I've had thoughts like, oh, I should probably like step away from some of these because time, just time. But I don't want to. I like them, and I like all the things we put out, and so I'm proud of it.
They're your babies. That's like when someone's like, "What's your favorite product? What should I own?" I'm like, I'll get all of it. Just go ahead and go in there and get all of it. Like, I'm the worst person to ask, which child is your favorite? I don't know. They're both pretty good.
Yeah.
With so many shows under your belt at Armchair, did you ever have one that just didn't work out? Especially memorable times an episode or an entire series just tanked? Knowing no, but I would love to hear any.
Tanked, meaning we weren't happy with it?
Oh, good question.
Because no, there haven't been any shows that we've put out that we aren't happy with.
But the data?
Yeah, there are shows that perform better than other shows. That's definitely true. And yeah, and there are shows that I wish more people had listened to. But it's like anything in this industry. All you can do is provide the thing you want to see or hear or consume. And if you are doing that, you did it. Like, that's it. That's the only thing you can ask for. And I feel that we have a really good track record of that. We have had barely, I would say 3 episodes, maybe total in almost 7 years that we have not put out for one reason or another. I think actually 1 or 2 of those was technical, but then there have been some. We've had a few people who obviously the publicist told them, go do this, and they didn't really want to do it or know what it was, or wasn't engaging or participating in the way that we need. So that just was not going to be worth putting out for people who listen and like it. But it's so rare. It's so rare. You'd think there'd be more after this amount of time.
If you had to do it all over again, what would you do differently?
Gosh, the cheesy answer. I just wouldn't do anything different. I wouldn't. Because how do I learn? How do I know? I wouldn't be able to be where I am if I hadn't gone through all those.
Isn't that steps. So part of the journey though? That's like, I even in COVID brought us to $0 days. I would redo COVID because it allowed us to step back, reset, and be better. So I'm aligned. It is very fun having you here today, because when we were talking about doing an Argent podcast, you were the first person I talked to, and you said, don't do it. So,
and you didn't listen, and that's a good lesson. I'm glad you didn't listen. Did I say don't do it, or did I say?
Yeah, you for sure said don't.
Yeah, I said I don't think it. Well, okay, I'm going to give more context.
Yeah.
I know how busy you are, and it's extreme and it's very impressive, but it's a lot. And I know you have a ton on your shoulders. So my thought was making time for a podcast did not, to me, seem like the best use of your time, but I'm very glad that you didn't listen to me.
You're the best.
Because this is fun.
Yeah. I mean, I think it was the right advice and probably consistent advice for a lot of reasons, but in the same, like on the flip side, I love it because it just gives me the chance to connect with people that I love. And I think telling stories like yours is really important. You're giving people representation of like, you just go, you figure it out, you dive in, you're going to learn, you're going to go. No experience is not going to like put you on, like it's just.
Well, I hope it's, for me, I want it to be hopeful because when I was like wanting to be an actor in 8th grade, the podcasts weren't a thing. There was no such thing.
Right.
And it can be exciting to think if you're in a rut, well, maybe the thing that's going to make me the happiest and fill me up doesn't even exist yet, but I'll find it.
I love that.
Yeah. Oh, one more thing, because you brought up, I know I have to go, but you said that I told you not to do it. That's a move out of Matt Damon's playbook, The Love of My Life. He tells, if he used to say that if young people would come to him and ask for advice and say like, should I be an actor? What should I do? And he would say, don't do it. And he said, and if they do it, that's like that's who should be doing it. Someone who says like, yeah, I know I shouldn't do it. It's too hard, but I'm going to because I can't not.
Oh my God, I love that so much. And it speaks to me. I'm so happy that we're doing it. And I think that there's an audience of up-and-comers and women that are so hungry for conversations like these and to just learn from those of us who have done it. So I'm excited because I'm like, I feel like, putting conversations like this out into the world, if it impacts one person, it's a win.
I agree.
And I'm happy. So that's all
that matters to me.
Before we go
to dinner,
before we go have dinner and really catch up unrecorded, I thought it'd be fun to close out the episode with a little game of Would You Rather.
Okay. Now I'm scared. Now I'm intimidated.
Monica's body language just changed. Would you rather start your career all over again at the beginning or start a totally different career path right now?
Oh, I would. Wait, these are horrible options.
I don't know what I would say to this one.
That means I have to end my current career? Yeah. What are the stipulations here?
You either start your career all over again or you start a totally different career path tomorrow.
Am I guaranteed
nothing
ever?
I think that you could start your exact path from Soul Cycle and all the things, maybe with some bringing back some learnings into that. Yeah, this is a tough question.
This is crazy.
I think you can only say start your own career.
Start my current career again.
You can't say I want a different career tomorrow.
I love my career, so giving it up would be very sad. But if I'm not guaranteed, what if it's like I'm just starting again from scratch?
Let's pretend it's that and you're not guaranteed.
Yeah. If it's just starting all over from scratch, I would pick a new career and just be very grateful that I got to have what I had.
I would make that same choice, 100%. Yeah, that's right. Would you rather burn the midnight oil or start your day before sunrise?
Oh, burn that oil.
Have you always been like that?
Yeah, I am not an early riser. Although I've told myself starting in September, I'm going to start waking up at 6.
Virgo season. Here we come.
I'm never going to do it.
We both share, we're within a week of each other, our birthdays. So would you rather work only in a tiny cubicle or only in a massive open concept office?
Tiny cubicle.
Same. Would you rather be the oldest person in the office or the youngest?
Youngest.
Same.
Yeah. It comes with wisdom, which is great.
Oldest could be fun.
Yeah, because then people also respect you and then they come to you. But it's fun to be young. I got to be real.
And the naivete and the glass half full.
And people to look up to. I enjoy that.
Agree. Same. The guidance, the mentorship. What? With that said, you can get some reverse mentorship if you're the oldest. Would you rather be late to a meeting where you're presenting or where your boss is presenting?
Oh my God. I just had like a full heart palpitation.
I read that one because I was like, Monica will hate both of these.
I would rather be late to a presentation I was doing.
Ooh.
A show with a boss looking at you coming. Absolutely not. I'm scared of authority.
It's funny. I don't know what this says about me. Absolutely where they're presenting.
Really?
I hate going into something that I am responsible for and not having like a few minutes to just orient.
I get that.
To go in flustered. Oh.
I hated that.
We got 2 more. Oh, God. Would you rather accidentally leave your mic unmuted or your camera on?
Stop. These are horrible.
We've never done them and I've never been happier.
Oh my God. I would rather, I think camera on. I think I'm probably doing less just being than whatever I'm saying. I have to be careful. I say some shit. I don't know if we're allowed to say that.
Yeah. But. Oh, yeah. I think everybody does.
Yeah.
I figured out that Google, let's see, what is it? If you mute your computer, but not Google or whatever, there's like some scenario where people can hear you and you don't realize it.
Oh.
Be safe out there, folks.
You need to text me whatever that is because I need to prepare.
I actually like really feel uncomfortable even talking about it because I'm like, I know I have said something.
Right.
It's not great. But I only speak kindly of others.
You're a very nice person.
Oh, we're very kind people. Would you rather interview or be interviewed?
Interview.
Without the ED?
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I like your seat.
Yeah. I think I'm cool with both.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're a good interviewer, then you are talking about yourself. You're making it more relatable and connected, and it's not just question. So it's a mix.
That's right. I'm more experienced in your seat.
Yeah.
Than this seat. This is hard.
Yeah.
The interview
part.
You're
doing great.
Thanks, Monica.
Proud
I was
of you.
Fishing.
You got one. You got a fish.
Anything that you just want to share, new things to promote, anything at all to just be put out in the ether?
Nothing to promote other than our norms, all our shows. We have many shows and some more to come, some fun ones to come, a very fun one to come.
Great.
I'm very excited. We have a limited series coming out that I'm really excited about that I've given you some deets on.
I'm happy to promote my own experience. Armchair Expert Thursday is the discovery. It's like people you've never heard of. And every time you listen, you're like, thank God I listened. It was so
Thank
good.
You. They're my favorite too. It's going to college without having to take any tests, picking the exact topic you want to know about. It's a cheat. I mean, it was just like a life hack we figured out of getting to talk to very smart, interesting people.
Your job is the coolest because you get to cast. Like, I want to learn about name topic, and then you can go find the expert, ask them to come on the show.
The best in the world at that thing. They'll come to it's bonkers. So lucky.
I love consuming all of the things, and I just love watching your growth, and I just love you. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Thanks for doing a podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thanks for discouraging it. All right. We're off to dinner. Thanks for listening to Work Friends, a podcast from Argent. Listen and follow on all podcast platforms and subscribe to the Argent YouTube channel for more clips and bonus content. Plus, email your work questions and dilemmas at workfriends@argentwork.com for a chance to have one of our amazing guests weigh in with advice. I'm Sally Christensen, and we'll see you next time. Work Friends. Work Friends is produced by Gina Marinelli with editing by Justin Kropp. Our theme music is by Karina DePiano and Melanie Naima.